He doesn't know. You'll figure it out.
So that I can do this.
What up? Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, everybody. It's a Schuler SM58. You know what's great about these microphones? You can hammer nails with them, and they still work. Because I've done it. I toured in bands.
You'll find out
a
in
long
this
time,
time.
and these were nice. And you know, you forget tools sometimes when you set up for a gig. You know what I'm saying? What happened?
Yeah. Okay,
Did you say use a bomb?
Oh,
yes. Listen, we're all adults here, right?
Speak for yourself.
Wanna be?
I want you to closer to Huddy.
Yeah, let's tighten up. Yes, let's tighten up.
Tighten it up, baby!
This one a little more active. I don't want to.
Yeah, this one's like.
Okay.
There's a lot of mics up here.
I know.
And this one just
Okay.
work. Yes.
We're a ghost friend.
This is our ghost friend. This is you guys right here.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this panel. Thank you. We are family. And to our allies, we'll allow it. My name's David Wald. We'll go down the panel, and everyone will introduce themselves with false names. But I'm Peter Lemongello, and yes, we're here to talk about gay representation, queer LGBTQ representation. Forgive me now. I grew up in the 80s, so the words like gay and queer and LGBTQIA are all interchangeable with me. So if anybody is triggered by those terms or anything, I'll try to be respectful of that, but I tend to just flip around. The gays have been through many faces in my time. My own experience in dealing with queer representation in anime was it was a mission. I played a role, a guy named Bulat in a show called Akame Ga Kill some years ago now. And at that time, because when I got involved in anime, I hadn't ever been a fan of anime. I didn't dislike it, but I wasn't exposed to it. So my initial exposure to anime was in participation. I had been working as an actor on stage and in film and television for 20 years. So then I got into doing anime, and I had no idea that positive queer representation existed in that medium. I wasn't used to it because I lived in America and we didn't have positive queer representation, right? So my mind was blown, and I went on this quest to find all the stuff that's out there. And y'all are here, y'all know, y'all are anime fans, you know what's out there, you know what's been out there for years and years and years. And so I took it upon myself to start beating down doors. I started taking meetings with producers, with executives, and I started trying to explain to them the value of this material, and why it needed to be done, and why it needed to be treated respectfully. And we got a lot of dubs done that way. From those dubs, other studios started dubbing, and now BL titles and Yuri and Shoujo I titles, these get done now. I don't take credit for that. I think a lot of that is sort of the zeitgeist of the time, Queer issues have come very much more to the fore in the last, say, 10 years or so. But before I started beating on those doors, didn't no studio want to dub a gay title. I basically twisted a lot of arms, made a lot of enemies. I'm mostly appalled with the state of queer anime dubs at this point. We're gonna get to that. But that's sort of my background and why I'm here to discuss this subject. And now I shall rule the ball.
Hello.
Take the energy.
Zip zap zap. Hi everybody, I'm Hayden Daviau. I'm a non-binary pansexual voice actor. I've been in this. Yeah. Or the Emperor, or the Shady Lady, as we coined. Shady
That's
Lady.
my shady lady, yo.
I think we coined that during like case study or like body shots.
That seems about
Yeah,
right.
I was like, that sounds about right. But I didn't start working on like queer anime until like we started working on Given. I love Given so much. But I was just very happy to start seeing more of it just being made in general and like positive stories, because I grew up in the era of like a lot of like yuri anime being like, we like each other but we're sisters though, and I'm like,
Right.
or we like each other but we're related, and that still happens even in like, there's a show being done right now, I think it's called Magic Maker. Yeah, it's incest and also an isekai, and the main boy is actually a 30-year-old man from different, in the whole time, bro. So getting to see like not only like positive stories, but like these positive stories told by like queer actors. So like, getting to see more and more of that is like made my little queer heart happy. So and getting to be part of it has been very special with many people that I love. So that's me, and I'll pass it on down to the sweetest boy.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jonah Scott. I am a cisgender bisexual man. My experience with LGBTQ stuff in anime kind of evolved over the time of me being in it. I voiced Lego She and Beastars. That's like one of the first things that I ever did. And I kind of played that character, I guess non-canonically, but sort of canonically bisexual. And there's a lot of like scenes in there that, if you saw it as a straight cis person, and you were just like, oh, okay, that's, just guys being dudes, right? But there's a lot of subtext and undertones and stuff like that. And then from there, we did things like Skate the Infinity, where I play Joe.
Has anyone seen that show?
Anyone?
What's
Really?
that? What is
Come on.
it? Explain it to me.
A skateboarding anime? That's weird. Where's Tony Hawk? I play Joe as I assume he is canonically bisexual, so I play him. So same thing with Given, Akihiko, play him as canonically bisexual, obviously. So it's very nice to see someone, in my experience, that there's kind of like a wall between being bisexual and being accepted into the LGBTQ community, because a lot of the time you get, why don't you pick a side, figure it out, you're just confused, that kind of thing. And I'm not, I know exactly what I'm about, son. And it's playing both sides so that you always come out on top, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's very nice to be able to play characters like Akihiko, who actually sit down, and Joe, and actually sit down with the little gays in the show. And they're just like, hey guys, it's okay to be the way you are. It's okay to be like that, because you don't. If you don't want to choose, you don't have to choose. You're allowed to express yourself in certain ways. You're allowed to like guys. You're allowed to like girls. You're allowed to like both. And having somebody that, I play a lot of older brother characters. I play a lot of paternal characters, caretakers, guides, and being able to sit down and even having that as, having some fictional character say that to me would have been huge, like 10 years ago, right? So being able to be that character and play that earnestly, honestly, and with a lot of truth behind it is really something, not just for me, but I imagine for a lot of little gays out there. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Yeah, this one's better. Okay, cool. Yeah, this one's your point. Hello. Hi. I'm David Mills. Nice to meet you guys. I am a cisgender gay man. I definitely think I got my gay awakening from anime, for sure. I think
Final Fantasy!
Yeah, fine, it's okay. No, it was Inuyasha. Inuyasha.
Okay, no,
Okay, but who in Inuyasha?
Don't worry. Let's go.
Obviously.
Yeah. But yeah, things like Final Fantasy, anything like that, it just kind of like made me realize, hey, guys are really pretty. So, having the industry evolve into this more accepting and representative way of LGBTQ community, and having shows like that, and being able to record them also with like my fellow cast members who are also, it's just incredible. Like, and I talked to so many of you guys who are, you know, these shows have impacted your lives, and they inspire you, or they help you feel safe or seen, and it really resonates with me because like when I was younger, that was not necessarily the case. Like it was not regularly accepted. Like I didn't come out, I think, until I was about 19, 20 years old, and now I have, you know, people coming up to me who are like younger than that, and they just know who they are, and they know what they are, and that's fine, and I love it, and I love that people can be open about that nowadays, you know, like it's more commonly accepted. And I think it's really important to not only have support groups amongst yourselves and your family, but also to look to people in media or any things that you consume as a role model or somebody that is going to kind of lead the way in that, you know, like you want to kind of have, like I look up so much to so many different people in our industry, even, like Mr. Wald here, or Michael Tatum, you know, anybody like that. Like, you know, there's so many people that were kind of formative in this and have paved the way for all of us, and I am so forever grateful for that, truly. And especially like working on shows, like I worked on Hitorijime, My Hero. That was my first BL shows that I did. And that was it was actually with Mr. Saab. Where's Alejandro?
Too straight for this parent.
Not being gay.
It's okay. He was gay.
I don't know. He married a non-binary person, so I don't know.
I don't know what that's about anyway. That's okay. But yeah, so I mean that was amazing. And then like you said, you skate. Like I feel like I portray Cherry Blossom, however, as a canonically gay character. Like I lean into the obvious tropes and stereotypes that are presented to me, and I enjoy like kind of exploring the dynamic between Joe and Cherry and trying to figure out, you know, their history. It is truly like it was like a saving grace, I think, for us during the pandemic. Because we were recording at home, we're all isolated, we're doing the show, and it has just left a lasting impact on it all. Like truly, like for years now, and I'm just like so grateful for this opportunity. And you know, I've got to do other things as well. And I did a show called Cherry Magic. I don't know if you guys last year, I played Apache in that, and I was very excited to do it as well. I'm just so happy to be getting the chance to do more of these opportunities. And it's funny because like I've had the opposite end. Like I get people that are not as kind about it on the internet or whatever. Like certain fandoms don't approve. Like, and you just kind of have to stand against that, right? And try not to let it get under your skin because like they don't define who you are. Like you just have to like accept and love yourself regardless. Like those naysayers and people, they just have a lot of
Yeah, you know what? Let me add to that, David. I'll tell you, because I'm 52 years old in May, I think, and I just did the math. I made it this far. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s in Texas under Reaganomics at the height of the AIDS crisis, right? So if you heard anything about gay people in the air, it was never good. And something I learned really, really young, for those of you who face, and I know today is a much different age, you've got like gay straight alliances in schools. We did not have that. You've got like people who are hip, who maybe your parents watched Will and Grace and were like, oh, it's not the worst thing. And so now they're raising kids, and they're not putting the pressure on them and the judgment on them that my generation got. But I know that that's It depends on the family, it depends on the town, it depends on the circumstances, it depends on the church, it depends on so many things. So for those of you who do face that, and I know I did every day of my life, basically every day of my life, I paid a price for being a gay person. And some of them were pretty dear prices. But the only revenge, the best revenge, is to live your life and be happy. Because that's what they can't stand. That's what the haters want to take away from you. They want you to be miserable all the time. And they don't want you to find any solace or solitude or enjoyment or camaraderie or community. But we can all do that. We're all together in this room. That's community. That's camaraderie, And people out there will be upset. Let them be upset. Knock 'em.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I always say it's like other
It's fine.
people's opinions, especially about like this to say on like animal topics, like other people's opinions aren't your responsibility
Or your truth.
or your truth. Like someone, like so many people be like, non-binary is not a real thing. I'm like, that's really cool that you believe that. That still has no impact on the fact that I am who I am.
Yeah.
So how?
This is my favorite way.
Okay.
Non-binary people do not exist.
Hi.
Oh.
Now, I've had moments where it's like, I'm not binary. They're like, yes, male. I'm like, not male.
Yeah.
Immediately, I'm like, bruh. But I will never forget, just like in terms of like creating community, I was at WooCon like years ago, and it was like their first year. And I had this sweet kid and their mom come up, and they're just like, they just want to come say hi. They're like, hi, I just really wanted to thank you for being an iconic non-binary voice actor because it helped me come out. And they were like no more than 12. Like they were like young.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so important, especially like being like public facing as we are, to be loud and proud and just like out, because you never realize who you are reaching and whose life you are touching. There could be someone across the globe who realizes that they are non-binary or gay or pan or anything in amongst the LGBT community. Is like you never realize what door that could open for them, or what aha moment that might be.
Yeah, it's true.
It's so special.
There, of course, when I was a kid, there was no. I mean, if you saw an even like mildly queer person represented in film and television, then it was probably a dude wearing a silver lame blouse and like carrying a purse and hitchhiking with a butcher knife in his purse because he's about to kill whoever picks him up. That's what we got, right? That's what we got. And that's why, coming back to the origin of this for me, when I found that character, Bulat, who was canonically gay, it wasn't a big deal. It was talked about, it was acknowledged by the characters, and then he went on being what he was: a mentor, a teacher, a warrior, a dude, a bro, And none of those, he wasn't the gay one. And it was the first time I had ever seen that. Blew my mind. And I was like, I knew immediately, because when I was a kid, the last thing you wanted to be was gay. And if you were gay, the last thing you wanted to do was tell anybody. It just, you were done at that point. You were a pariah, outcast, unclean. That's what it was like in that day. And so my generation had no one to look to. We had Rip Taylor, and we had, but even Rip Taylor died in the closet. You know what I mean? So Rip Taylor, for those of you, everyone in this room is too young for Rip Taylor. Rip Taylor was a dude who was wildly queenie. He showed up on Hollywood squares and shit, and he had a huge blonde mustache, and he threw glitter everywhere he went.
Yeah.
Right?
That sounds like a straight man to me.
Yeah. So that's what we got. We got cartoonish clowns, or we got horrible villains, and that lasted so long. And Hollywood started rendering gay people, and it was whatever that Bond movie was. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Daniel Craig Bond movie because Daniel Craig, you guys. My God. Anyway, one of those movies, I forget which one it was, had Javier Bardem as the villain, and he was a former agent, and it turned out also gay. So thank you for that. Yet another gay person painted to be a psychopath. And you can like hear the meeting, the writers' meeting, going, wow, we want him to be really sick and broken. How do we make him more sick and broken? Gay, great, we'll do that, you know? So it lasted a really long time, and it's still, frankly, Hollywood is, you know, they're batting about half. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now it's the now you gotta get over the bury your gays trope. So if you're gay, and it's like the part of your character, and you know, 50-50 shot, you die by the end of the show, or die by the end of the movie, or something like that.
Yeah.
And rarely do they ever get a happy ending.
Yeah. So, you know, knowing all this, having grown up in this, and knowing what a detrimental effect that it had, because literally, guys, I had no one I could talk to about this. I had no friends, I had no family to talk to about, no one to talk to. Teachers, guidance counselors, nobody was prepared to answer questions about this in the 70s and friggin' 80s, right? And I know the value of exactly what you guys are talking about. When you see these characters who are like, God, that's me, and I'm 12, and I see that, and like, I can identify with that, and that person isn't gonna try to murder James Bond. And like, so I knew exactly how needed this was, and I knew how absent it was from American media, even in, around 2015, when I started looking into this. But there it was, in anime, all over the place. And we all know full well that a lot of those older titles are not necessarily positive representation, right? There are a lot of old tropes, there are a lot of old, but even still, even something as like tropey and problematic as like, what is it, the very first, the first one, the older dude and the young boy goes in and moves in with him and
Romantica.
like, very problematic, but also, that's a rendition of gay life. That's a depiction of gay life that I never saw when I was a kid, and it would have been of value to me. So yeah, so I started beating down doors. It took me 3 years to get a dub for Love Stage. Love Stage was the first entry in this new wave, right? Because of that, we did Ichirishime, right, at the same place. This was at Sentai Filmworks in Houston. And then we did Bloom Into You, and like, they were into it, they were in it. But the whole pitch that I had was that, you know, you look at the community at large, when you count all the colors on the rainbow flag, right? You're looking at like 20% of the population being LGBTQIA or A, right? In the anime fandom community, I think we all agree that that number is way off, right? This is a place where queerness is celebrated and has been in a long time, and not necessarily by the shows, but by you all, who are showing the world around you how it can work to be accepting of people who live a different life than you, or live a life maybe you don't even understand, but you can all come together in a place like this and share these communal experiences, in this case, your love for a medium, right? And like, it works. Somehow it works. Nobody's going gay bashing, but you know, like, it works. And so this fandom is so much more heavily populated by those of us in the rainbow community, as I like to call it, that it seemed stupid to me that this was being ignored. Not only because, you know, queer kids kill themselves at a rate of about 30% more than anyone else you compare them to. That's just unacceptable. And I don't think those kids are dying of gayness. I don't think they're dying of violence. I think they're dying of alienation.
Yeah.
It's alienation. And that's what happens when you feel alone in the world and you've got no one to talk to about how alone you feel in the world. You're alienated, you're out there, you're alone, and a lot of people just don't survive it. And I knew that dubbing this material would literally save lives. Not just, oh, that one performance you did just saved my life, it was so good. I mean, will save friggin' lives. right?
Because there's so much to say about like just feeling seen, even just by a show. Like, there's a show, well, it is not queer. I mean, you could definitely argue the show D. Gray Man. I watched that when I was 16 after my dad passed away. A year earlier, that show literally saved my life because it came around at the right time. He was telling the right story. So sometimes the right stories, the right characters can literally kind of pull you up from the trenches. So especially like to jump off what you're saying, it's so important to have the material, but not just in general, but to have it accessible and accessible to more audiences. So I think it's very special getting to do it, and then being queer and getting to be part of it as well is, I don't know, it just adds a whole other layer. So I think, and then people seeing this like, oh, it's queer cast doing, like being part of these properties, you know?
So, growing up, I was really into Dragon Ball, right?
What?
White. So, I am now Frieza in Dragon Ball, right? So, very grateful to be a part of the show. But it's not always readily accepted from that sort of community to have somebody queer voicing in this very hyper-masculine show. And I've had like a lot of people.
It kind of shows you the quality of that masculinity.
Yeah.
When your masculinity is so
Fragile
easy to threaten
yeah.
that a gay person in the room.
Yeah, but also Frieza, I mean, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, girl.
Frieza Force is like the intergalactic
And also,
drag
like,
show.
Frieza's like a retired drag queen. Like, come on. Like,
But still, it's like, are you really gonna let that bother you? That like my performance, because my performance, you know, I feel like I do the character justice, and I try to give everything I can to the show. And it's not anything about gayness or anything, but just to be visible, openly gay and visible in a title like that, I think is important. You know, to have for people who need to look for guidance or to have support and feel connected to somebody, even if it's not just about gay content, just having people that are out, you know. And so I feel grateful that I can even be in a role that is that visible and then can still be myself and be open about it.
Yeah.
So,
And this is why to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is exactly why I started beating down these doors,
Yeah.
right? And like the other thing that I think the community at large doesn't really recognize is its own power. Because I'm going to tell you what the marketing departments see when they look at.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah. There's a term in marketing called DINK, double income, no kids, which describes not all gay families, not all queer families, but many queer families. And you know what that means? That means you have twice the disposable income as your straight counterparts. That means you're not saving up to put a kid through college or buy them a car when they're 16. It means you got money to spend. And the result of that is the queer community is generally way ahead of the curve on home entertainment spending, technology spending, games, that kind of entertainment spending. We are a way bigger chunk of these markets than we give ourselves credit for. And like, you know, all I can say is, after all the work I did and all the convincing I had to do at studios like Sentai and then Funimation and whatever it became afterward, all these other places, the amount of energy I had to put into describing to these people why this was valid and why this was wise. And then Skate the Infinity comes out. And proves every point I made to these people. And I would be lying if I didn't tell you there were people super upset at that company with what we did to that dub, particularly me. And yes, I paid for it. But I'm glad to, and I'd do it again, because you all are more important to me than those assholes.
Yeah.
But then again, my whole point proven and ignored by an industry that's reflecting an industry in Japan which has already embraced this material. but the industry over here does not. And I'll tell you what they do now. What they do is they see a queer role, they cast a queer actor. They're done. They're not considering you at all. What they're doing is they're taking the burden of that queer representation, taking it off their shoulders and putting it on Damon's or Hayden's or Jonah's or someone else's, so they don't have to worry about it. What I was talking about from day one in these meetings, and I'm still talking about it, was they need to be written and directed by queer people.
Yes.
Because you have to understand the content of the show. You can't put it on the actor to carry that burden. The actor doesn't generally know the whole show. The actor we don't get like background. We don't get a little character docket to look at or anything to study. We show up on the day and like, you're this character. And then we start speaking the lines, the first time we ever see them, right? And like, you can't place that burden on an actor. And that's all this industry is doing. And it makes me really angry, in case you can't tell. And they're still doing it. And like, a certain studio, which shall remain nameless, had a moment where they had queer people directing queer dubs, and then they stopped. And now, the last 3 queer dubs that studio has done have been written by a straight man and directed by another straight man. So, thanks.
And what you guys can do about it is be vocal. Like, let them know. And, you guys are, unfortunately, you are the product to some extent, right? But there's a power in that, you know what I mean? When you go and see this and it's like inaccurately represented, it's being directed by people that are not represented from the community or that wouldn't really understand the material. Honestly, probably good people that are just put in the wrong position. And you gotta let them know that. You gotta be active on social media about it. Like, yes, you're gonna get the show in Japanese, and that's fantastic. But in order for it to be accessible, because like another thing that I think falls on deaf ears a lot of the time, not to use an ableist term, but like it's dubs are accessibility options, right? Nobody, if you're blind or vision impaired, right, you have to be able to listen to the show and have it affect you just as much as being able to watch it and stuff like that. Children or whatever, people who need to see this kind of stuff. So be vocal on social media. Vote with your wallet. If you like the show, buy the Blu-ray. If you don't like the show, don't buy the Blu-ray. They look at those numbers very hard. Now, and as somebody, I don't do a whole lot of production. I am not on that side of the glass very often. Everybody else up here are, and I want you guys to talk a little bit more about that because I don't have that sort of expertise. I just kind of go in and say the lines. But yeah, that is another aspect. It's like 60 to 70% of what we do, and I'm easy on that. So.
Well, you have to. There are so many people. Like for me, when I was talking to these studios as a director, presenting myself to them as a director and saying, this is what I'd like to do and this is why I think we should do it. There are still so many people above me in the chain who have to okay that. And it goes miles, it goes out of town. It goes like, it takes so much doing it to get it done. Particularly like the larger the company, the more rungs on the ladder you have to climb to get anything done. And mostly what I've found, and yes, I've certainly faced discrimination. I'm not gonna lie about that. I've definitely faced gay discrimination in this industry in recent years. But more the problem is the problem of privilege. Have you all ever heard the expression that privilege is invisible to those who have it, right? So that's what we're dealing with. And it's mostly the impulse to just keep stuff off. It's like, what I think is the basic human need, more than food, water, shelter. It's to keep stuff off my desk. That's what everybody wants. They want stuff off their desk. They don't want to have to think about it. They want to show up and do their little job at the studio and think, we'll do this one and this one, this one, not this one, this one, this one. Done. Now I need to go home and have dinner with my wife or whatever. They just don't want to think about it. So they need people who are willing to think about it. And there aren't a lot of those in full-time positions. I worked several years for a studio, which shall remain nameless, which has had nothing but white, cisgendered, heterosexual people in charge for as many years as I worked there. That's all there is. That's all there's ever been. That's all I've ever seen. White, straight, cisgender. In anime, do you know how hard you have to try to prevent the gay people from getting in? At any level of anime, look around the room, people! You have to try. At this same studio, this is what I'm talking about the invisibility of privilege. I had one of these white, cisgendered, straight people invite me into their office because they were going to do a pride activation. For those of you who don't know, that's a marketing term. And when Pride comes around, what an activation means, we will temporarily embrace this subject to get some followers, right? It's as insidious as it sounds. This producer asked me, didn't bat an eyelash, didn't realize what an evil thing she was saying to me, asked me to give her a list of all the queer actors. Can you imagine? Right? Yeah. And this wasn't that long ago, y'all. This is what we're dealing with. And it's a high mountain. But just so you know, you've got people here who are trying to fight these assholes. We're trying to put them on notice, trying to show them the value of doing the work we're talking about doing. And we already won this argument. They just won't admit it yet. Do you know what happened to the viewership of Skate the Infinity after the Bitches, Bros, and Non-Binary Hose line? I'm gonna give it to you. Hey, bitches and bros and non-binary hoes! That is what happened to the viewership. It increased exponentially, magnified, didn't double, didn't triple, exponentially. Did I get complaints? Oh yes, I got it. So like, it's not like this point is hard to understand. It's just a bunch of people who don't want to take it on. Particularly when you're in a company that's only run by straight people. Purposefully. You know, so we still have a lot of fighting to do. But we're doing it. We're back there doing it. We're rattling cages, we're beating down doors, we're telling people right. But it's a fight.
In the small time that I also tried to beat down doors and get as close to, not nearly as much as David has, obviously, but it's really difficult. It is incredibly difficult to get anybody to listen. And I just want to take a second and give Dave his flowers for a little bit, because he has worked his entire life to do this. And I've done this for maybe 3 years max. And it is a continuously Sisyphean battle, constantly, to wheel that up the hill and then get told no, go down, try again.
Excellent reference.
I try. I'm a scholar.
We love a good educated boy.
Can we give David a round of applause?
I'm gonna go over the mattresses as long as they'll let me in the room, guys. Some won't anymore. But I haven't gotten any quieter. And I think, thank you. And I think our work speaks for itself, you know? But that brings me back to the point of how important it is to have queer people in charge of these titles. And to say nothing of how important it is to have queer people in your marketing department, or in your licensing department, or whatever other department you've got, you know? Certain studios ain't doing it. You know,
yeah,
maybe they're the kind of studios who once got into business with Rick Santorum. I don't know.
Can you name a Blu-ray DVD that has had a queer cast special featurette or anything like that? Or any sort of TikTok marketing, or YouTube short marketing that contains, this is becoming as an actor, right? Because sometimes large studios come to us and say, hey, we'll do some on-camera stuff with you for a little bit so that people can like bridge the gap between the voices and stuff and engage with people. Anybody seen any stuff like that? Anywhere? From any studio?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Yeah, it's disappointing.
In this, the year of our Lord, 2025.
The fact that it's 2025 hurts my brain a little bit. But like in terms of like marketing and stuff like that, like it's not anime, but I help run a company called Net19. We're a TTRPG company. We're great. I love them. We play D&D multiple times a week and also Pathfinder and stuff. And I've been working with our like marketing and social media manager, Maroon, shout out to Maroon, where we're like, we need to like really embrace like our girls, gays, and theys a little bit more. Because I was like, so much of our cast is like non-binary, gender fluid, very gay.
It's anime, of course!
And TTRPG players, we're very gay. And like it's also like a space of like imagination. So like if you want to like explore different parts of yourself, like you absolutely can. So it really goes to show, and like by doing that, like we're doing stuff for like Trans Visibility Day and things like that, and it really shows that like embracing that, people feel more seen, and like that's something that, speaking of kicking down doors, I am slowly but surely working up to starting to try to broach that in like the companies that we work with, because it is so important, and especially coming to cons and meeting people who, I have had the queerest line today, y'all. Thank you. Yes. I've had so many fellow babies and Denverers coming through, and it makes me very happy. And I'm like, this is why I'm so freaking out and very loud about it, and I refuse to shut up about it, because you reach people, and I want to I want to keep the doors down, and
It's the purpose of art, right?
it is.
It's
Like,
art-
That's why we all got in.
yeah, exactly. Like our job is to elicit emotional reactions and make you feel things and make you like bring realness. And I think I think that's something like all of us find is very
It's
important.
more than getting a list of queer actors.
Yes.
And also not succumbing to bullying or harassment that you receive. Like I've had that in the professional side. I've had, not often, thankfully, because usually most people are pretty liberal in this field. But I've had directors like make jabs at me or try to demasculate me and try to tear me down and excuse my language, fuck that. Like, no. You don't get to define me, you don't get to belittle me just because of who I love. At work. At work. And
Yeah.
when this occurred, I was a lot younger and a lot more scared to speak up. Now, fuck you.
So guys,
Absolutely, yeah. Like, go ahead.
yeah, you all agree with us, I know that. You wouldn't be at this panel if you didn't, unless you came to just stir up some shit. But any of those out there? All right, so do you all have any questions for us? Because I can talk about this all friggin' day, and I will. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the GSA advisor at my middle school,
Amazing.
and so.
Can I just say bless you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I was curious. I'm a literature teacher, so I'm familiar with books that I feel comfortable recommending to students. But when you're talking about 12, 13, 14-year-olds, what anime do you think would be appropriate for me to recommend to that age?
Wow. That's a very good
Wow.
question. That is in the queer realm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like queer representation.
Yes.
Oh, God. I mean,
Skating Infinity.
Skating Infinity is absolutely appropriate.
Yeah, Skate the Infinity and Given, both those are, and Bloom Into You as well, which is about girls, two girls. These are shows that are on the newer side of this school of anime. They all released like within the last few years, and they are being a lot smarter about some of the old Japanese tropes that have been sneaking into these stories for a really long time. All three of those, Given is about a rock band, and there's no graphic material. Skate the Infinity is about a bunch of skaters, which may be the one gayer thing than anime.
I don't know,
When I lived in New York, I was hanging out with a skate of boys. Those loose pants. you know? That's not for your children. So yeah, these shows like are dealing with this material without diving into some of that more problematic stuff.
Right.
So
It's more chewing on the feelings.
Yeah. It's illustrating the process of coming to terms.
Yeah.
So Skate the Infinity is a great one. It's not really, Skate the Infinity isn't a tale of queerness coming into its own. It's like, the characters just happen to be queer. And it's like, it's a really beautiful balance, and it's something we don't get a lot of anymore. Given is a show about a rock band, so like, you know, your tough little 12-year-old dudes who want to grow up and play guitar, they'll dig that. And the queer element of it is really kind of secondary to the coming to terms of these characters. I mean, it's an extremely important factor of the story, but the story is about a band, you know. Bloom Into You is one about two young women. And there are fewer of those, and there are fewer of those that don't include problematic tropes as well. Because of course, even still today, and probably any civilized culture you can name, the idea of romanticizing two women together usually is meant for the men.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bloom Into You is not. And that would be what we're looking at. But like, good on you. Please, round of applause. For the gay supervisors that tell you, I can't imagine the life I might have lived if that had existed in my school. I can't even imagine it. I wouldn't be as angry about this shit right now. Thank you very much. Yes, back there.
If I could also suggest, and this is more kind of on like the gender aspect of queer representation in anime and manga, Princess Jellyfish.
Yes!
Thank you.
Or let's say Jessie Greeley.
Oh yeah.
It's a josei, so its target audience is adult women, but it's because it takes a more mature approach to life and just like living and growing up. It follows a young girl named Tsukimi. She's 18. She's like freshly into the world, and she considers herself very introverted. And she meets somebody who she refers to as a stylish, someone probably like us, where we're all, you know, we have this community that we engage in. And this woman is so cool to Tsukimi, and she saves a jellyfish at a pet store. And it turns out that this woman that she saw, this princess, is actually a boy, and his name is Kurnosuke. And it's a story about the internal and external understanding of yourself, and it's really explained through like fashion and how you express yourself to the outer world. But it's so beautiful that it can also be read as a trans story, and understanding yourself as a trans person and accepting that and showing that off to everybody else.
Yeah. So Princess Jellyfish is definitely one to add.
So,
I have one.
Thank you so much.
yes.
One more. Yuri on Ice.
Oh,
Yes. You sir in the red. Right behind you. Sorry. You'll be next.
Hi. Yes.
What do you feel about the
In Genshin. So, the way that because nothing is explicitly canonical, so it's hard for me to comment on that. The way that I play Vinny is that he could be bisexual, because especially he's very much a character that is flirtatious and fun and confident, and there's dynamics in the story where he romanticizes the traveler. This is just how it is represented, either with the male or female version. And so in those moments, I think that can be taken however the player perceives it. And if they perceive it as a friendship, that's great, but I also think it can be inclusive of a romantic element.
I will say it takes an incredible actor to be able to pull that off. So
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
yes.
So I think that the character I play is definitely in the realm of possibility of being in the LGBTQ community for sure. But I can't give an official comment. There is no. Because there is none. So, but from my perspective as a performer, that is how I approach it.
Yes. And now you have one.
Well, first comment is, as someone who cosplays Najimi Osana from Komi Can't Communicate, is very much so a like gender weird character. As a non-binary person who loves cosplaying them, I recommend that. It's about a high school full of weird characters, but we love them all.
Yeah, these are great. I see you writing them down. Like, it's great to do that because, you know, when I was a kid, it was all about queerness. Who's gay, who's straight, who's not, who's bi now, gay later, who cares? Now, gender is such a more sensitive issue and a hotter issue. It's like, it's on the minds of a lot of people who never thought about it before because it was never a topic of conversation, you know? And like, it was a thing you sort of had to suffer in silence by yourself. And nobody even the queer community didn't know how to have conversations about
They
gender.
still don't.
Yeah.
They still don't.
So that's, those will probably resonate quite a lot with your age group.
Yeah.
And also kind of more towards David because he worked in that time when I got reincarnated as a slime.
Yes.
That is the first time I ever saw the term androgynous used in an anime.
Yeah.
It is so wonderful to see that. Like, Ruru can just be like, oh, a masculine form, oh, a feminine form, oh, kind of an
It's
androgynous
ambiguous,
form.
yeah, androgynous, yeah. I
Love that.
love.
That's another one, but maybe if they're a little older.
See, I mean, the list really is pretty endless. I mean, there's just so much to look at.
Same with the Cherry Magic show I mentioned earlier. Like, that one is actually, what I loved about doing the show is it's two men. I mean, they're like 30-ish years old working in an office together, and it's a not fetishized romance story. Like, the premise is that it's really silly because my character's a 30-year-old virgin, basically, and he can read minds because of this. And so this is how he finds out about his office crush being into him, or the guy he didn't actually register as like a guy. He wasn't into him until he realized, oh, he likes me back. Yeah. And so there's this whole dynamic, but it's not sexualized, it's not a power dynamic, he's not like a boss or anything, it's just the two people that meet, and you slowly start getting connected, and then he figures out, oh, I think I'm maybe gay. And he comes to terms with himself on this, and it comes out, and it's just a beautiful story. I really loved it.
That's a very good question, by the way.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Yuri on Ice, that
Yes.
basically blew up in 2016.
It sure did.
Why do you think it took so long for the industry to figure it out?
I-
and then-
The industry still hasn't figured
It
it out.
figured it out ever so slightly more, but it's still
Yeah.
like
Well-
needing to be learned and catapulted out of this this. I feel like they like put kid gloves on it and then they're just like, I don't know how to deal with this, and then they wouldn't stop. Yuri on Ice, I remember because there was no manga, and when we were recording it at the time, like Skate, we were like, what's gonna happen every week? And we're just like, wait, because it's a beautiful ice skating show, but then it was like easy to this romantic element between the two leads. And I'm like, what's happening? Is this a thing? And I just remember every week, like we would just meet up and like in the lobby between sessions and just like kind of like speculate about the plot. And it's just amazing. I love that show. And
You realize it was a real breakthrough.
It
I mean,
was.
it was a big breakthrough, but you know, you go back and you watch it now, and you find it's not what we need anymore. Yuri on Ice pulled all his punches.
That's the problem.
You never saw the two boys kiss. Maybe you did, but were they just hugging?
That's
Or were
the
they
problem.
whispering? But like, they pulled all their punches. Now, in Japan, that was a revolution. Because if they hadn't done that, if they showed two men in like a visibly intimate moment, it would have been TV MA. And it wouldn't have been able to be in prime time in Japan. So because they didn't show any of that, and they inferred it heavily, it was able to run in prime time and become the most popular show of that season.
Yeah.
So like, that was a bit of a, Yuri on Ice was a bit of a curveball. You know what I mean? But it did pave the way for shows like Given and LGBTQIA and like all these shows that came after it are being much smarter. So like, they've learned from that. Japan has. We're on our way.
felt like a huge thing at the time.
Oh
And
my
even
God,
then,
yeah.
you're like you said, they pulled punches and it wasn't enough because they do need more. It just needs to be played. You shouldn't skirt around the relationship or the queerness of whatever is happening. Just own it and have people embrace it and love it and don't scrutinize it. I don't know. It just needs more love around it.
All right, so lightning round. We got one more. Go.
Piggybacking off of that, do you feel like the American voice acting and like the queer scene in American voice acting in Japanese media is held back by the conservative nature of Japanese society when it comes to queer topics?
I was just going to
Yes.
comment on that. The one thing that I really liked about Skate was that it brought, again, I'm going to use by straight passing, by man privilege here, and use some sports metaphors. But sports, they
Read
took
the
the ball.
room, Jonah.
Japan in Skate, you threw the ball, we got it, and we were the receivers. We were the one who was just like, okay, we're going to take this to the end zone and score for you, right? We're going to take the ball past the 50-yard line and make it work. And we were able to look at the subject matter in the show and be like, oh, I get what they're doing. Let's just lean into it. Let's lean into that as far as we can. As far as we can, right, Dave? As far as we can lean into it. And we just turned around with the middle finger. But yeah, it's we have to kind of keep pushing the envelope here, and we have to take what they give us and push it even further. And I say, is this okay? No, it is, but you're not letting us. Okay, I see what you're trying to do, right?
And
They kind of get called out. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to sort of button up, because we're at time, that's sort of the way it is now. Like, everyone up here has rattled some cages, right? Cages are getting rattled, thought processes are getting interrupted, and other considerations are starting to land on the desks. But we still have a lot of work to do, because there's still a lot of cages that need more rattling. And, you've got people doing it behind the scenes, but we gotta get loud. We're gonna have to get loud again in ways we haven't gotten loud in a really long time.
Especially right now, being loud and proud right now is so important. Like, don't let them shut us up. Like,
Demand authenticity because you deserve it, and this industry can give it to you. It has before, it might again, but you deserve it, and we can do it. And the people standing in the way, they just got blinders on, but they're the ones making the decisions. So we gotta rip those blinders off, rattle those cages.
Keep punching up.
yeah,
Keep punching up.
Punch up. I like that one. Yeah.
we always punch up.
Well, thank you very much, my dears, for sharing. Panelistas. What's next? What's the panel everyone's going to now? Did I make the name for it?